Good morning, how are you today? Today's video, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics from Bath & Body Works, and that is pumpkin fragrances. So if you know me well, I love all things gourmand and fall, and so pumpkin is my favorite fragrance category to cover, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to smell a large assortment of pumpkin fragrances from over the years that Bath & Body Works has sold falls past. I'm going to try my best to go in chronological order of release or debut day. Some of these fragrances have come back multiple times throughout the years, and so a bottle I might have might be a newer edition than when it's originally released, but I'm trying to do this based on when we very first seen this fragrance from Bath & Body Works. So yes, I'm going to try and do this chronologically from release or debut year. I'm going to smell and give quick little reviews and go over their fragrance notes. We can even compare and contrast them to each other. And then towards the end of this video, we're going to rank these pumpkin fragrances, if that's even possible, from worst to best. Stay tuned and keep watching this video if you want to know what the best pumpkin fragrance is from Bath & Body Works. So we have to take it all the way back to the original Heartland era of Bath & Body Works. Heartland era at Bath & Body Works is a time frame in which Bath & Body Works branded their items and all of their products based around this farm stand market fresh kind of vibe. Everything had this locally homegrown, you could find it at a farmer's market kind of look, lots of wooden baskets. Their pattern of choice was the red gingham, that's where this originated from. We also had the green sunburst logo. Everything just looked very 90s mom's kitchen kind of style. Not only did the visual branding match this theme, but I feel like a lot of the fragrances that came from this time match this theme as well. Now that we're well outside of the 90s, we can kind of look back on these days and just look at it and think, oh man, this looks so 90s-esque. So I feel like that is kind of where it all started for the pumpkin fragrance. We have our original pumpkin fragrance, at least from what I can find, and that is Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin. I have a picture up here of the oldest one that I could find a picture for on the internet, and we're guessing that this body lotion is from maybe 1998, 99, somewhere in there. And then the spray next to it, we're guessing is probably a couple years later, maybe 2000, 2001. Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin is the first body care that I can find that is scented like pumpkins, and this is a fragrance that still is sold today in various forms. So we had an online exclusive for the body care, and then we also have it in candles and room sprays, wallflowers, hand soap. And I find that when we're talking about Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin, it's important to differentiate. Are we talking about the home fragrance or are we talking about the body care? Because I feel like home fragrance versus body care on Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin smell very different. The body care is a lot more of this crisp, soapy, 90s fall girl kind of scent, while the home fragrance has a little bit more of a deep, depthy, harvesty spice scent. So on this bottle from about 2002 to 2005, somewhere in there, we had this Simple Pleasures collection, which is what they branded their signature fragrances as. There was a Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin, and on the back it's classified as spicy, and it says it has apple, cranberry, cinnamon, pumpkin, and clove. All the sweet and spicy fragrances of fall come together in this special scent. I feel like that gives us a little more insight into the composition of Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin. More of the current body care items from Bath & Body Works only list the key notes, not necessarily top notes, mid notes, and base notes like they used to on the bottles. So it's important to remember that the body care fragrances at Bath & Body Works, even now, have many, many notes that are used to make up that fragrance, and we're only getting a small sampling of some of those more prominent notes are what are listed on the bottles. I feel like it's pretty helpful to look at older bottles if there's a repackaged scent. If you can find an older one, you can actually sometimes find even more notes of what you're smelling. Here I have a fine fragrance mist. You can tell that this one is very loved. I actually have a few backups of this as well. I have a backup from this same year and then another backup from a different year, even more modern. But this one is from 2018, Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin Fine Fragrance Mist. This was a part of their fall traditions for that year. Fragrance notes for the Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin, I think 1 or 2 years before this one, were listed as having pumpkin, apple, and ginger, cinnamon, jasmine, vanilla, rum, and amber. So once again, lots of notes that make up one fragrance. Doesn't mean that they weren't in there one year and they are now. It just kind of is the way that they market these and what notes they bothered to actually list on the bottle itself. Oh man, smelling this just gives you all of the nostalgia. It smells surprisingly similar to Country Apple. It has the same 90s kind of fragrance. I can't really place my finger on what it is that I'm smelling that makes it smell 90s. It's kind of this soapy, clean, feminine, almost girly kind of scent that I can just never quite place, but country apple smells the same way to me. I feel like Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin pretty much just smells like country apple plus spice, if that makes sense. The nostalgia alone is enough to make me love this fragrance. I'd better pick up the pace. We've got so many pumpkin fragrances to go through. So moving up the line, we're actually jumping all the way to 2014, where we had 2 new pumpkin scents in body care. We had Pumpkin Pecan Waffles, not this bottle, but a different one. I'll have the picture up on the side here. And then we also had a different pumpkin launch we'll talk about in a minute in that same year. But this Pumpkin Pecan Waffles that I have in my hand here is actually a newer one. This is from 2021. I don't know if a lot of people will agree with me or not, but I feel like this Pumpkin Pecan Waffles has a slightly different scent than this Pumpkin Pecan Waffles. So this was the 2014. It had more of a sweet treat bakery kind of essence to it. I feel like the maple pecan was more the prominent note in this one. It just seemed a little bit more sweet and saturated, while by the time we got it back in body care again in 2021, it had more of this crunchy, crisp baked waffle scent to me. Either way, notes on the Pumpkin Pecan Waffles body care is maple syrup, golden waffles, pumpkin spice, and brown sugar. So even though I feel like the Pumpkin Pecan Waffles from 2014 is a little more sweet and saturated, I will say that the Pumpkin Pecan Waffles from 2021 smells a little more accurate to the candle. They smell a lot more similar to me than the other two. At the end of the day, these might be exactly the same fragrance and it's more how I'm just perceiving it. But to me, this is more, if you've smelt the candle, this is what the body care exactly smells like. This one's very heavy, rich, and sweet. I feel like if you're someone who's not used to wearing gourmands, this would come off as being a little overwhelming or sickly sweet. But for me, I like sweet scent, so I'm able to pull this one off just fine. And like I said, it's very golden and crunchy smelling. So in that same year, 2014, we also debuted another pumpkin fragrance, and that is the Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte, except there's a little twist. It actually had a slightly different name and a different branding behind it. So they actually called it Pumpkin Latte and Marshmallow, and it had the big letters of comfort on the front too. So this was the ancestor to what we now know as Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte. This year was the first year that we did not see it return in body care since that year, so it was a little bit hard for us Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte fans. I'm hoping that we see it in body care come back next fall. We did see it in hand soap as well as hand sanitizer this year, so it didn't completely go away, so you still do have a chance to be able to smell what this fragrance is like. This is a little page from my scrapbook. I actually was there from the beginning with the pumpkin latte and marshmallow, so this is packaging that I peeled off when I had emptied up my shower gel. So this is what the front label looked like, and then over here, I kept the scent notes and the little blurb about the fragrance, and this little cable knit sweater imagery was actually on the inside of the back. You'd look through the shower gel at this image and it gave it kind of a cool 3D effect. So on this, I just kind of write some memories. I had finished up the shower gel in 2021, but this is from 2014, like I said, and it says, cuddle up around the warm, glowing fire and enjoy a cozy comfort of a creamy pumpkin latte and toasted marshmallow. Keynotes on this one were pumpkin latte, toasted marshmallow, creamy sandalwood, white ginger, and praline musk. And so this is one of those fragrances that is a top 5, maybe even a top 3 fragrance for me. Between the memories association and the way it smells, I just love this fragrance. Other than this year, since 2014, this fragrance has been coming back annually, and this is my 2023 edition of Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte. It's just a very classic, sleek looking bottle there. So nice. When I smell it, I feel like the marshmallow is actually the first note that I get, and then the pumpkin just kind of grounds it. I do get a lot of the praline and ginger as well, and that's part of why I love this fragrance, is it's so multifaceted without being competitive for notes. Sometimes when I smell a fragrance that has a lot of notes listed, they often feel like they compete with each other, but this is one where every single note is important and every single note works together just perfectly to make this sweet, creamy pumpkin marshmallow scent. It's one of their cutest fragrances. I just love it. If I could time travel to 1 year of the past in Bath & Body Works to shop the body care, I think I would have to choose fall of 2016. This was a huge year and a huge fall for pumpkin fragrances. We had a whole collection based around Pick Your Pumpkin. I was kind of a newer hire at this point, and I was mainly just working floor sets. My collection hadn't quite snowballed at this point. I was still kind of one of those people who was like, I'll just pick my one favorite, buy it, and then just use it till it's gone. So I wasn't necessarily collecting at this point. I was hired and working floor sets at this time, so I do vaguely remember what the tables looked like and setting these fragrances up and smelling them while I was working. But man, I feel like I was just too fast asleep during this time. I slept on all of these wonderful fragrances. I do actually have a fragrance that's newly added to my collection from the internet. I think I got it from Mercari, and there was a couple from my collection already. But either way, let's jump into the pumpkin scents of 2016. This one I feel like I don't want to include in the ranking, but it is worth mentioning. I actually mentioned this when I did the same thing for the apple fragrances, reviewed them and ranked them. I kept this as an honorary mention just because it's equal parts pumpkin as it is to apple. If I were to say it leaned towards one side, I would say it leans towards pumpkin, but I'm not going to rank this one just because I didn't in my apple one, but it is worth talking about. It was a part of this Amazing Pumpkins collection, and it's called Pumpkin Apple Cider, and it smells very similar to what we now know as pumpkin apple in the home fragrance. I just feel like it has a little bit more of a sweet and creamy note to it than the pumpkin apple candle does. I love wearing this one during November because it just has kind of that wrapping up epitome of fall. This is your last chance to wear all your favorite fall fragrances, so I feel like I gotta get as many pumpkins and apples in at once, so this is kind of the perfect tie over between those two notes. But this is the one that I just recently got from Mercari. Or was it eBay? Can't remember at this point. But either way, Salted Caramel Pumpkin. I'm so glad to now have this in my collection. Although I'm a little sad because I don't want to use it just because it feels so special to me. Maybe I can get a second one so I can have one for collecting purposes, one for actually enjoying and using. I feel like Bath & Body Works doesn't have enough caramel fragrances, especially in the body care department. But this one, it really hits the caramel needs. In a lot of ways, it doesn't smell too strong of pumpkin. And what's kind of nice about it is that it doesn't have that classic pumpkin spice smell that most pumpkin fragrances come with. A lot of them have notes of cinnamon and nutmeg as being kind of the forefront thing that you notice. But I find that this one is more of a pure, sweet, and simple fragrance. In a lot of ways, it's not terribly strong. And I mean, this is an older scent, so it could be that this one, I don't know how this was stored since I bought it secondhand, but it's not crazy on the strength. But it has a nice simplicity to it that I like. It almost has a tiny bit of a fruity pop to it, something a little like an apricot or an orange, just kind of a hint or a suggestive little note on the top there. Predominantly caramel. It does smell really good though. So I just read a little review here that someone compared this fragrance to the Marshmallow Beach Nights. I really can see that, and I agree with them. So they said it smells like the Beach Nights, except in place of the marshmallow, it's caramel instead. That's very true. So this one has a really interesting notes listing. This was back when they gave us more notes listings than they do now. So it had tangerine, apple, maple, pumpkin, buttercream, orchid, caramel, vanilla cake, pineapple creme brulee, sugared woods, and fluffy musk. Wow, that's a lot. It's funny because here I'm saying it's simplistic. Maybe it's not so simplistic, but when I did smell it, I was mentioning I smelled those more fruity notes. I was saying maybe it was like an orange. I see now I kind of get that little pineapple upside down cake scent in there. Pineapple is a good way to describe it because oftentimes when I think of pineapple in terms of fragrance, I think of it being a little bit more of a syrupy, citrusy experience, which I would say applies to this scent. Last pumpkin fragrance from 2016 is the debut of Pumpkin Cupcake in the Body Care. So this bottle is from 2021, but it originally launched in 2016, and it came back a couple different times throughout the years as well. I think there was one in 2018, and then I think there was also a couple times it was an online exclusive as well. But either way, I love this fragrance. It's not too heavy on the pumpkin also. I feel like it's more of a spiced vanilla scent. It has whipped buttercream, pumpkin spice, and vanilla cake batter. We still get this one fairly consistently in home fragrance as well. I would say it's very similar to the home fragrance. I would say it has a little bit stronger of an artificial cakey vanilla kind of scent. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't enjoy that artificial fake birthday cake, confetti cake kind of scent. I feel like this scent has that a little bit. I enjoy it personally, but it has more of a childlike kitty quality to it because of it. Here's a pumpkin from the year 2017. I feel like this body care collection was kind of a weird one. I feel like they were trying to be a little bit creative and think of some new ideas in terms of forms, shapes, and sizes of bottles, and I feel like nothing really stuck around from those experiments. From that collection, we got this spray that doesn't really look like the classic Bath & Body Works spray. You know, I feel like it's important that they stay firm, and maybe they realized this after they tried it. Having their products be recognizable is actually an important factor, I feel like, for branding, and so I think that's why some of these shapes and sizes didn't really stick. I think also it was a way that they were transitioning, changing size versus price. I don't have a price on this. I can put it on the screen if I figure it out, but this was 6 ounces and this was considered the full-size fine fragrance mist. So kind of interesting to see them trying out different things there. So the spiced pumpkin and cider here is actually one of the fragrances that my sister uses the most for fall. This was her favorite at the time, and so she bought up a whole bunch of the body care and has been using it ever since pretty much. So when I smell this, I think of her. So this is one of the few times that I smell pumpkin fragrance and I don't think of myself wearing it just because I associate that scent with her. But either way, this one is compared to being the most similar to Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin in body care that we've had, other than, of course, Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin. And it has notes of heirloom pumpkin, royal cinnamon, and apple cider. So this one is kind of interesting because I feel like it actually is pretty strong of the cider scent. But smelling it, it's kind of interesting because I feel like it has spicy perfume qualities. Something similar that comes to mind actually is the new Everyday Luxury scent that we released for this fall, Inner Angel. It has kind of this spicy, perfumey, powdery kind of scent, and I feel like this spiced pumpkin cider has that note in there. Their names are very similar. This is pumpkin apple cider, and this is spiced pumpkin cider. I feel like these are quite different from each other, even though they do share similarities. I find that the pumpkin apple cider is a little bit more true to name, and it's a little bit more straightforward gourmand, while this spiced pumpkin cider has kind of some interesting layers that I wouldn't classify as gourmand. Like I said, there's a little bit of a powdery, perfumey effect going on. Just as a disclaimer, I think this might be one of my favorite pumpkins of all time besides the marshmallow pumpkin latte, and that is Pumpkin Picking. So this is a fragrance that was one and done. It was only released one time, never came back, and it's from 2018. It was during a time that we had some rectangle bottles. Once again, there was a lot of experimentation, I feel like, going between 2017 and 2018. Alongside this fragrance was Bonfire Bash as well as Autumn Nights. All 3 of these fragrances were brand new debuts. This one has notes of cinnamon spice cider, fresh pumpkin pie, and hay rides to the patch. It's the first time we see pumpkin pie as one of the notes instead of just pumpkin spice or the pumpkin itself. Same as the previous 2 pumpkins we covered, this one also has a spiced cider note to it. And while it is prominent, I find that it's a little bit less of an apple cider and more just kind of like a spiced mulled cider kind of scent. It's not like a fresh, crisp apple, if that makes sense, while the other ones are a little bit more appley on their cider. Cloves, nutmegs, and maybe even like a little bit of that star anise kind of scent a little bit. But I mainly get like a harvest fleshy pumpkin and maybe a little hint of pie, like a caramely woods kind of scent to it. Originally launched in 2020, we got a new debut fragrance called White Pumpkin and Chai. And this bottle is from 2022, so this one did come back a couple years in a row and then poof, disappeared. This one has cinnamon cider, spiced pumpkin, vanilla glaze. Again, another cider themed pumpkin. A lot of these pumpkin fragrances did have cider as a note, and they all kind of have cider in varying degrees. I feel like this one, the cider, just like the Pumpkin Picking, is not very appley. It's more of a spiced experience. Of all of our pumpkin cider scents that we've covered, this one is the most leaning towards a vanilla pumpkin scent. Very similar to Pumpkin Picking, this one has kind of a sweet, caramely wood vibe about it. There's a little bit of like a chai tea thing going on here, but the harvest pumpkin is prominent. This is very similar to the home fragrance that we have now called White Pumpkin. Okay, sadly, we only have 2 more pumpkins to cover. So this next one is Pumpkin Swirl Cake. This was another pumpkin that was launched once and then it didn't come back. At least it hasn't yet. This is from 2023. We keep getting teased a pumpkin fragrance, it's like, this is our new pumpkin. And then they're like, just kidding, here's a different new pumpkin. Right now, I feel like we have some room in our Bath & Body Works repertoire for a classic pumpkin. They keep bringing Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin back, and I hope they always do, at least as an online exclusive. It would be nice to see it in stores again, too, in terms of body care, but at least we have online exclusive. And then Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte is what I considered as their staple pumpkin fragrance that kept coming back as kind of their classic. And now that we didn't get that this year, I feel a little bit empty or like pumpkinless, if that makes sense. So when I saw this one, I thought maybe this was going to be our new pumpkin. And then when I saw this year's pumpkin, I thought maybe this is our new pumpkin. So it'll be interesting to see next year in 2026 what kind of pumpkin they're going to bring to us. Is it going to be a familiar face? Are we going to have another new debuted pumpkin? Or are we going to have some throwbacks come back that we haven't seen in a while? It's just hard to say. Either way, pumpkin swirl cake has pumpkin spice, caramel toffee, and creamy vanilla. Now, if I were to compare this to all of the other pumpkins that we smelt, I feel like this is the most similar to maybe pumpkin cupcake combined with the salted caramel pumpkin. I feel like it has the caramely notes that the salted caramel pumpkin has, but it has more of that fluffy vanilla cake batter scent that the pumpkin cupcake has. This one to me does not scream pumpkin scent. It's mainly like a caramel cake. Like if you said this was a tres leches cake, I would believe it. And then last but not least, the final pumpkin that we need to talk about today is Glazed Pumpkin. This was debuted this year as a brand new pumpkin fragrance for fall 2025. And this one has notes of vanilla glaze, caramel woods, and pumpkin cream. Now this has some similar notes to the pumpkin swirl cake. I find that these are actually quite different though. And I'm kind of thankful for it because I like variety. I like to have as many different choices in my collection when it comes to pumpkins as possible. So I really truly can pick my pumpkin every single fall. This one I feel like is a little bit more pumpkin flesh. It almost has a little hint of a coffee note in comparison to some of these other ones. And it's funny because in Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte, I don't get a really strong essence of coffee in it. And this one almost smells a little bit more coffee-ish now. And I didn't notice that the other times I've reviewed this fragrance, but I guess maybe just smelling them all back to back like this kind of makes me notice that difference. It almost has a little bit of a salty effect to it too, but it does have a little bit of a posh fragrance perfumey scent there as well that not all of these pumpkins get. I feel like of all the pumpkins, this one was the other one that was the most perfumey, if you will. So I feel like this one kind of falls under that category in comparison to the other pumpkins as well. Okay, it's time for the challenging task of ranking these from worst to best. I try to keep a neutral perspective when I describe these fragrances or review them, and even when I compare and contrast them, just so that you can kind of get a better and more accurate understanding of what this might smell like and if it's something you would enjoy or not. But this is when my opinion has to come into play, because how else can I choose what goes in last place? In last place. Not because I don't like it, but just because it's not a me fragrance, I'm going to put the Spiced Pumpkin Cider from 2017. I think if this fragrance hadn't already been claimed by my sister, we might have been able to rank this a little bit higher, but when I smell it, I just don't think of myself. It doesn't smell like something I would wear, and I have it in my collection more for collecting purposes at this point, but this is just not a me fragrance. We're actually going to say that this is in 10th place just because I am going to keep this pumpkin apple cider as an honorary mention and not include it in my ranking. If I were to rank this, it would probably land somewhere in the middle just to kind of give you perspective, but I didn't rank it in my apple one, and so I don't think it's fair to rank it in my pumpkin one, but I felt we needed to talk about it anyways. This is painful, so I'm looking at pumpkin swirl cake and pumpkin pecan waffles. I feel like this is so cruel. I think one of these is going to be in 9th place. Okay, I know who it is. I'm sorry, but pumpkin swirl cake is going to be in 9th place. Not necessarily because of how it smells. I think it smells delicious. I think that this is just an underwhelming and underperforming fragrance mist. It just doesn't have any oomph to it. It doesn't have enough depth to make it last. And normally I'm not someone who cares too strongly on whether it has good longevity or not, but this one is just so weak that it kind of goes undetected when I wear it. It just has kind of this milky, vague vibe, and it's not very pumpkin-y either, so I think for those reasons it gets 9th place. Arthur says that since he's the color of a pumpkin, he wants to know if he can be ranked, and so we give him 1st place. Sorry, Arthur was being a little naughty, so we had to rein him in there. I guess since it was tied with pumpkin swirl cake it makes sense to just put pumpkin pecan waffles in 8th place. I do really enjoy wearing this fragrance, although I find I have to be in a certain mood for it just because it is so heavy. But because of that heaviness and the fact that I feel like there's a lot of notes that need to shine, like the brown sugar and the pumpkin itself that just kind of don't, I feel like the waffle and the pecan just kind of drag this fragrance down to a darker, heavier scent. Really great when that's what you're looking for, but I'm not always in that mood. So 8th place for pumpkin pecan waffles. I guess glazed pumpkin is in 7th place. I do really enjoy this fragrance. And when I smelt it on this own, especially not comparing it to other pumpkin fragrances, I really enjoyed it. But now that I've smelled all of my other favorite pumpkin scents, it made me like it just a little bit less. So I feel like there's kind of this little musky, perfumey note in there that just kind of takes away from the pumpkin instead of adding to it. I tend to like my pumpkins to be a little bit more straightforward pumpkin and sweet and gourmand, and this just has a little hint of a musk in there that I personally don't like. I still think it's a wonderful fragrance, so 7th place, pumpkin cupcake. I wish if I could change this fragrance a little bit that it were a little bit more heavy on the pumpkin, but just for my personal enjoyment, and it could just be the nostalgia alone, I just like wearing this one, and it just gives me like creamy November, late fall, sophisticated vibes without being perfumey. There's something about that spiced vanilla that just makes me feel so cozy.
Hey, it's the editing Melissa here, and I have to sneak in and say I messed up because I forgot to include this fragrance in my ranking. It's like it got knocked over and I didn't see it all lined up with my other choices when I was ranking them. I do want to say that this fragrance is one above pumpkin cupcake.
I'll let the original Melissa take it back over. Sweet Cinnamon Pumpkin gets 4th place. I feel like this is a top runner-up. Once again, the nostalgia alone is enough to give me a high ranking on this one. I feel like this is the fragrance that started it all in terms of pumpkin-scented body care. It deserves a place at the winner's table. I feel like since this is such an early, rough draft version of a pumpkin scent, it doesn't necessarily encapsulate all of those delicious gourmand vibes that I'm looking for in a pumpkin scent. But that being said, it's just classic and you really can't beat it. 3rd place goes to one of my all-time favorite scents, White Pumpkin and Chai. Once again, this one gives me November vibes, Thanksgiving, harvesty, cutesy vibes. It's a really great transition into winter fragrances. I think it's just so creamy and delicious, so love this scent. 3rd place. My 2 runner-ups for 1st place, we've got Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte and Pumpkin Picking. I knew these were going to be my top 2 fragrances, and I knew that choosing one to be in 1st place over the other was going to be nearly impossible because they're pretty much tied, and for different reasons I love them. I will say that for the sake of this video, I'm going to give Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte 2nd place just because, hear me out, this is such a good fragrance, love it. In my book, it's probably 1st place for personal enjoyment, but because it has some of those other notes that make it not necessarily 100% pumpkin scent, it's very heavy on the marshmallow. There is little hints of latte, the milk froth, the praline, the ginger that make it less of a straightforward, this is a pumpkin scent. You know what I mean? So 2nd place for Marshmallow Pumpkin Latte as far as pumpkin accuracy goes. And in 1st place, that would mean we give to Pumpkin Picking, which to me is the perfect, I wouldn't change a single thing about it in terms of I need a pumpkin fragrance. This is what I reach for. Okay, thank you so much for watching this pumpkin ranking video. How would you have ranked these pumpkins? You'll have to let me know down in the comments below how many of these pumpkin scents you've tried, how you would rank them, and also please let me know down below in the comments if I missed one of your favorite pumpkin scents. I have done a lot of shopping over the years at Bath & Body Works, and I've even tried my best to piece some of the holes in my collection in terms of this note pumpkin. I know there's got to be a pumpkin I'm missing that I didn't talk about today, so please do let me know if I missed one of those pumpkin fragrances down below, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!